Well, good morning, and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. In just a little bit, I'm going to read some comments from viewers. We've been receiving a lot of great emails and texts. There's our contact information. You can also send questions to our guest coming up in just a little bit, Tim Colpine. He's going to be our guest, manager of the Elmira Impact, formerly known as the Junior Enforcers. They're looking for host families for their athletes. We're going to find out all about that in just a little bit. And on tomorrow's program, we'll be joined by Stephen Shaw Jr. He's going to tell us about, and it's so appropriate for this weekend, NASCAR Bourbon. So that'll be on tomorrow's program. A little bit of fun, something a little bit different for Watkins Glen NASCAR weekend. Okay, I'm going to take that off the screen. Oh, by the way, I saw this in an email that I received today. Back on this day in 1998, this is one of those things that will make you feel kind of old. Back in 1998, former President Bill Clinton, in front of a grand jury, or I guess you could say grand jury testimony, had the quote, on this day, it depends on what the meaning of the word is. Isn't that amazing? By the way, the email, just because it's kind of funny, according to Merriam-Webster's dictionary, the definition of is the present tense third person singular of be. And the definition of be is to equal in meaning. All right, I don't know why I brought that up, but hey, we're starting the show a little different, I guess. So I wanted to mention a few comments I received yesterday after the program. Here is the first one. I'm just getting frustrated with the Republican Party laying down and getting kicked all the time. That's a very good point. This is in reference, and our next comment as well will be in reference. There was a piece, and now I can't remember who it was by, at the New York Post that said, if you believe, and this person did, that the charges against Trump are exaggerated, overhyped, really politically motivated, but because he is going through that, he should not be our nominee. So it's kind of rolling over, giving up. They won, so let's move on. And that's been a common theme, of the Republican Party for quite some time. And that goes to our next message, a lengthier one. I'm catching up, and in my opinion, in terms of the weaponization of the justice system, I think you're spot on. This isn't the time to accept it and move on. I think Chris Christie is way off the mark, yes. If anything, this is a time to stand firm because we are at a turning point where numbers speak volumes. And if we roll over on this, where most of us know that this is completely wrong, it will not stop. No, I agree with that. I would say it sets a precedent. It will only get worse. Once something like this works, no matter what the case is in politics, if it works, it's only going to get worse and worse. It'll amp it up even more and feed the beast. Absolutely. Warts and all, Trump has been standing for the people. We all have our character flaws, and he is no different. That's a good point. I heard someone many years ago at a political pundit night put it in the terms of, I'm not voting for my pastor. I'm not voting for my religious leader. I'm voting for president. But I'll continue. I'd also like to say that I feel some people think it would just change by some magical wave of the wand if everyone else wins the primary election, but they're going to go after anyone that's not in their camp, lock, stock, and barrel. It'll be the same endless, baseless attacks, new names. Thanks as always, and here is my virtual wave. So right there you go. Right, and there was an emoji, but the emojis don't show up on this, so I typed it in. So let's add a wave, and we're going to take a short break, starting off the program. Thank you for all the outreach. Keep those emails and texts coming in. There is the contact information. And we will be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. It is time for the M.A. Neal Financial Services section of our program. We are being joined this morning by Tim Colpine. Thanks so much for being on the program.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be with you this morning, Frank.
Of course. Well, you are the manager of the Elmira Impact Hockey, we should say. Most people know it formerly Junior Enforcers. You're looking for host homes. Tell us what that means if someone's interested, what their responsibilities would be. And if you could just pull that mic up a little bit, that's my fault. I apologize.
Sure. Well, there's a variety of ways that people can get involved and help our team.
Right.
And our program. And I should step back and say, first of all, our program is made up of, we have 2 teams of players aged 17 to 20.
Oh, okay.
They come to Elmira to play hockey from all over the world. And the reason that they come here is because they are looking to play college hockey and higher levels of hockey, and the league that we play in is heavily scouted by college scouts. As a matter of fact, we're going into our 4th season, and we have about 40 players who have played for us who are now playing college hockey or playing a higher level.
That's impressive.
Of hockey, including just this past summer, Jack Rogers, who played with us 3 years ago, was invited to camp by the Washington Capitals. So that's our first NHL invite.
Wow.
But the players come here and live here for 6 months and play hockey, and most of them live with host families, and we're always looking for more host families.
Yeah.
So that's a critical need that we have as the program expands.
Well, so if you're thinking of becoming a host family, how much time is spent with the athletes? Meaning, are you taking them to practice? Are you spending time out? You're going on vacation, you're taking them with you? What's the deal with that, time-wise?
So the players are here for approximately 6 months. They do go home for 2 weeks around Christmas and New Year's.
Okay, well, that's good.
They're also, they spend a lot of time on the road. They practice twice a day. They have team meetings every day. They have team workouts every day. A lot of them, in addition, do school online, be it completion of high school or also take college classes.
Okay.
And the team plays a very busy schedule. We play road games from Michigan to New Hampshire to everywhere in between. So the players are gone quite a bit during the season, but obviously they do spend a lot of time with the host family. Yeah. And the greatest thing about being a host family is that as one of our host families will tell you, she posted on Facebook the other day, that you get to be part of a young man's dreams.
Sure.
And you get to lend them a hand as they climb the ladder.
And I would say if you're going to be a host family, you don't have to even necessarily be a hockey fan, right?
No, as a matter of fact,
you'll probably learn to be a hockey fan.
You do. As a matter of fact, the woman I was just referencing, when they became a host family for us, they didn't know anything about hockey.
No kidding.
And now they are
diehard.
Some of the biggest hockey fanatics you could possibly meet. So absolutely. Anybody. Basically, we just look for people to help provide a safe home away from home. For these guys, and our players are all insured. They're all background checked, and they all come here obviously with the goal of being recruited to play at a higher level.
Let me ask maybe an ignorant question. I should have brought this up from the beginning. Where is your home rink? Where do you play? Where's the home?
So we play out of both First Arena and out of Murray Athletic Center, which is commonly known as the Domes.
Okay.
In our area.
And when I mentioned commitment to hockey, so they've got sometimes practice twice a day. You're traveling all over. Do they provide their own transportation if they're of that age?
They do.
Oh, okay.
They do, yes.
Okay.
Either they provide, some of them, they come from all over North America and all over the world. Obviously, the players who come here from Europe aren't bringing cars with them.
Well, sure.
But a lot of the players are, but usually about half the players have cars, so they provide their own transportation or carpool with teammates. So transportation is their responsibility. Except, of course, when we travel as a team, then we travel by bus.
This must be a time commitment for you, too. I never realized you had this much in it.
It is. It's sort of a labor of love.
Yeah.
But my son, one of my sons grew up playing junior hockey, and this is sort of our way of giving back.
Paying forward. How long have you been involved in hockey?
I've been involved in hockey for probably, almost 20 years.
Oh, really?
In different way, shape, or form.
What made you become the manager? Why did you want to become the manager?
Well, when we started the program 4 years ago, we thought that there were many local players, and I should say that about a quarter of our team are local players.
Oh, okay.
So they're from Corning, Elmira, Binghamton, or Northern Pennsylvania.
So they don't need host families.
No,
Okay,
they don't need host families. But having said that, there was a quantity of players here at a talent level that we felt like we could create a competitive program.
Sure.
And I spent many years as president of Corning Youth Hockey before the local youth hockey organizations merged between Corning and Elmira. So some of the people that were involved with me in that are also involved in this, and it just I just sort of became the manager because I was the one who sort of had the idea in the first place. So they said, "Well, we'll support you and we'll work with you." But
you have no choice.
But right, you got to do the heavy lifting.
Well, and you mentioned impressive stats, which you have to be very proud of, that you have 35 of your former players either in college or higher leagues. That must also be neat for the host families, right? To watch the athlete move on.
It is, and it's sort of a case of, I mean, these host families are so critical to the players, again, because they provide a safe home away from home for these guys while they are pursuing their dreams.
Right.
And they follow them now that they've moved on to play in college and elsewhere. I mean, the people that they live with here, I mean, they're still in touch with them all the time.
Of course.
Players come back to see them, and of course they go to see them play college hockey and other things as they're climbing the hockey ladder. So it's most of the families will tell you it's a that have players at a higher level.
Yeah.
We'll say it's very rewarding knowing that they were part of that development.
I would think so. And, you mentioned that the students themselves, the athletes, they have to pass a background check. They sign a strict housing conduct agreement. They're insured. But what does it take to be a host family? What process do they go through?
So host families also have to go through background checks and other procedural things. But the most important thing is just to be willing to open your home. To a young guy or two who's trying to better themselves. And the first step, anyone who's interested in doing this could shoot me an email, which our website, elmiraimpact.com. People can learn more about our program there, and also shoot an email to Tim at elmiraimpact.com or info@elmiraimpact.com, either of those, and that's the first step in the process.
So when does the season start?
So the season starts in September.
Oh,
so it's
so
coming
contact
right
soon. Yes.
However, we do have a need for families throughout the season.
Okay.
So it's not a case where we stop looking on Labor Day or anything
Right.
like that, because sometimes there is some roster turnover, and sometimes we do have a need for additional housing as the season goes on.
Sure.
So absolutely, people can reach out anytime.
How many games are in a season, ballpark?
Each of our teams plays 44 regular season games.
Wow.
They play 16 home games here in Elmira. They play 16 road games, and then 12 neutral ice games at showcase events that we attend each year.
And so it starts in September. When does it end?
It ends in mid-March, depending on how far we advance in the playoffs.
Wow, okay. All right, okay. Knock on wood, I got it.
Right.
So where can we follow the team, getting away from being a host family, but if we want to start following Elmira Impact, what should we do?
The first step would be to go to the website. You can sign up for news updates
Okay.
there, and of course you can also follow us on social media, Elmira Impact on Facebook, and also on Instagram.
And I'm guessing this is not a cheap endeavor, right? So how does Elmira Impact pay for these trips? And you've got to need sponsors, tickets, things like that?
Right. So, we sell tickets to our games. They're reasonably priced. And of course, we love people to come to our games and check a game out. Matter of fact, we've had some people who came to our games and then ultimately became volunteers or host families.
Oh, okay.
Because of that, they saw the level of hockey and how great it was.
Yeah.
And we also need game day volunteers. That's another way people
Yeah.
can get involved.
Wow.
Just shoot us an email and let us know. So, we also, sponsors are also very welcome.
Of course.
As a small business, we're always looking for sponsors. But the program costs about $600,000 a year
Wow.
to operate on an
Okay.
annual basis, and most of that stays right here in the local economy. Really, all of it,
Yeah.
except for the fees that we pay to the league and other administrative costs. But having said that, almost all of that stays right here in the Twin Tiers.
So how's the team look this year?
It's coming together very nicely.
Yeah.
Very
Have
nicely.
you? I'm assuming you already started practice, or?
The players will start showing up here in about 10 days.
Oh, okay. So
So-
you're getting ready.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what would you say to someone before we go that's maybe on the fence or thinking about what could ultimately be an amazing opportunity for the host family? What would you say to them?
I mean, I would say that it's. I mean, the families who do it don't regret it.
Right.
I mean, they across the board, they talk about what a positive experience it is. We have many families who now do it season after season after season, which I think is sort of a testimony to the experience that they have. And it's, I mean, these guys are here to be helpful members of the household.
Right.
They're not here to be waited upon, and they appreciate the opportunity that they have. I mean, just in playing in our league, they've already advanced well beyond, what 97, 98% of kids who start playing hockey will ever advance hockey-wise.
How far away? Like, what's the farthest someone has traveled to be on the team?
Well, we've had players from all over the world, from many countries. However, interestingly, we had a player who played for 2 seasons from Hawaii.
Oh, wow.
And then he's actually went on to play professional hockey, and he is the first professional hockey player from Hawaii to score a goal in a professional game. So
that sounds like a stat you'd hear on ESPN,
right,
randomly. Right. Well, that's pretty neat. So what's the best way to contact you? And I think it's important if they do contact you, maybe just to pick your brain on it. They don't have to commit.
Absolutely.
But you're more than willing, I'm sure, to talk to them. So what's the best way?
Yeah, the best way is to shoot me an email to Tim, T-I-M, at elmiraimpact.com.
Okay.
Or info, at elmiraimpact.com.
Now, when you go to the website, can you buy swag? Can you buy a jersey?
You can. You can, absolutely.
I might do that.
You can check us out with our new logo and our new name, and there's hundreds of items on there and all kinds of colors and sizes delivered right to your door.
There you go. I think I'm a fan already. So good luck on the season.
Thanks, Frank.
Tim, thanks for being our guest. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I can take that off the screen. Thanks again to Tim Colpine for being our guest. It's interesting, I was just saying off the air to Tim, how that's kind of been a theme on this program is host families, whether it was with Elisa and Sylvia. And that's why I think when he originally texted me to just talk about the team, I thought, what a perfect opportunity, because we've talked about it so often that this is an opportunity for viewers that are thinking about it and seeing the bond that Elise and Sylvia had and thinking, well, maybe this could be for me. Maybe you're an empty nester, you're retired. This may be the opportunity. So that's why I was glad that Tim reached out to me. So again, find out more at elmiraimpact.com. And I'm kind of excited to follow the team now. I never knew. In my ignorance, I never knew what kind of hockey we had in the area in that sense with Elmira Impact, formerly known as Junior Enforcers. Okay. Everything looking good? Yep. Let's get into some of the issues of the day. As always, you can contact me. On Friday, I believe, of last week, maybe Thursday, we talked about this essentially... I guess you can't say it's a tax, but you're going to be paying more for car insurance. And we were kind of, in a way, joking about it. But what it is whether you're married or not, you have to pay more money for insurance. And this is a law from New York State. Because if you get in a wreck, you can sue the person driving, right? But in the past, if it was your spouse, you really couldn't, or that was not the case. Now, New York has said, yes, you can sue your spouse. And we were saying that probably makes for awkward pillow talk, but that is now the law of the land. And with that, again, whether you're married or not, you are going to pay more. We've heard up to $84 annually, as low as $20. Not a lot is known. So the Times Union, the Times Union has a editorial piece on this. And they said the new law, sponsored by State Senator Neil Breslin, he's a Bethlehem Democrat, requires that every driver be enrolled in coverage that allows a person to sue their spouse for damages stemming from negligent driving. And if you're unmarried, does not matter. Everybody gets the coverage. Very similar to some of the things we heard about in the early days of Obamacare. Sure, you can opt out, but to do so, you have to contact your insurance company, sign a form declaring that you specifically do not want this coverage. Businesses with commercial policies are also automatically enrolled in the coverage, even though carrying supplemental spousal liability insurance will not make sense for most because it's a work vehicle, right? Geico, some of the other major insurance companies were opposed to this bill, opposed to this law, because they thought that they would be blamed for the increase in cost, and that makes sense. Now, here's why I bring up the piece. Here's why I am giving you an update. The bill drew strong support, however, from the State Trial Lawyers Association and the State Academy of Trial Lawyers, whose members will benefit from the litigation allowed by the expanded coverage. They argue that the law closes a coverage gap that prevented New Yorkers from suing their spouses who had driven negligently and winning payment from their spouse's insurance company. Now, I think we had mentioned that on the original conversation that we had. But this is why I wanted to expand on the coverage. Here's where, and this again from the Times-Union, here's where we mention that trial lawyers are major contributors to political campaigns. As Mr. Bragg noted, a political action committee representing trial lawyers has donated about $1.5 million to state politicians on both sides of the aisle since just 2021. And that includes Governor Hochul. In 2022, the year the supplemental insurance bill was passed, LawPAC gave the maximum $117,300 to the Assembly Democrats' campaign arm and nearly as much to Senate Democrats. And so, yet again, we are left with another example of Albany working for big donors, but not for average New Yorkers. The law is a legitimate reason to be mad at state government, and it must be repealed. It absolutely should be repealed, but it's another example of really being bought, right? With lobbyists, we now all suffer. Whether you're married or not, it's another added cost onto your insurance at a time when, as a country, we're struggling. But as a state, we're really struggling. And why? It's little things like this, death by a million paper cuts, as the saying goes, where people just leave the state. It's unfortunate. We can hide our heads in the sand and pretend it's not happening, but it's little by little, things like this, that cause so many people to leave the state of New York. Also, another reason that many people are leaving the state, background checks on guns and ammo. Scope has been doing a lot of great emails on this, or op-eds on this. It'll now have to go through the New York State Police Department, or New York State Police, I should say. Starting September the 13th, the New York State Police will serve as a middleman between gun owners and the FBI conducting background checks. Now, NICS, the federal check, but those checks aren't just on guns any longer, it's on ammunition as well. Last November, Governor Hochul passed the Concealed Carry Improvement Act. One of the changes made in that act included making background checks go through the state for buying both firearms and now also ammunition. Currently, background checks go through NICS, as I mentioned, National Instant Criminal Background Check System, run by the FBI. When the state takes over next month, and you can only imagine the bureaucratic nightmare that's going to be. But when the state takes over next month, gun owners will also have to pay a fee for these background checks. So an added fee, trying to price you out of owning a gun or buying ammunition for an extra $9. So it'll be $9 more for that background check for firearms and $2.50 for ammunition, which could easily add up. Now, the New York State Police Department released, and this is coming from, by the way, I want to give credit, RochesterFirst.com. The New York State Police Department released a statement on this just yesterday. Quote, the New York State Police is currently working to implement the legislative mandate that all gun and ammunition background checks be processed through the state police. The process for gun background checks will be similar to what currently exists. Ammunition background checks have not been required previously and will begin on September the 13th. The legislation requires that transaction fees be collected to fund the state background check system. So we have to pay a fee so that we have the honor of the background check and the fee is paying for the background check. Only in government, only in bureaucracy, and of course New York State always trying to do everything they can to restrict your Second Amendment rights. All right, weigh in on this and much, much more, because we still have almost a half an hour left. Thanks again to Tim Colpine, the manager of the Elmira Impact. Can you imagine they play that many games? Yeah, I'm surprised at how much we learned this morning. That's why you've always got to tune into Frankly Speaking. You never know what you're going to learn, not just about our area, but just about topics maybe you're not familiar with in general. So thank you to Tim Colpine. And tomorrow, Stephen Shaw Jr. will join us. He's going to talk to us about NASCAR bourbon. Look at this. Isn't that cool? How appropriate for NASCAR weekend, Watkins Glen this weekend. So we'll be joined by him tomorrow. Let's take a short break. Please weigh in on these topics and anything else you'd like. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, please stay with us. And we are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And we are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street Corning. We got a lot of waves this morning. A lot of people walking by and also texting us waves, which I kind of like. Okay, a couple comments from over the break. This is a voicemail. I'm going to read it as best as I can because it not translates, but you know it puts it down into Google Voice. Frank, I know you got your Google right there in front of you. How many people died last year in automobile accidents because of, drinking or texting or what have you? So I looked that up. In last year, 2022, according to NHTSA, they estimated 42,795 people died in motor vehicle traffic crashes. Now back to this gentleman's point. Nobody wants to take away cars, but I believe there's that many people. He didn't know the exact number. I just read it to you. Last year that died in automobile accidents. Maybe we need to take all the cars off the road if you use the same mindset as gun control advocates. So nobody would die if you banned all cars, which actually, be careful what you're saying, because in the name of global warming, they may go after your car. They sort of are with EVs, right? Electronic vehicles. Interesting. And one other thought. This is, again, from a viewer. One other thought. Just don't vote for a Democrat. Problem solved. That's from a viewer, not from me. But you can write in. What do you think? Another virtual wave. Look at this. We're going crazy with waves this morning. Okay. Did you hear President Biden's speech? He challenged, and I would ask you the same thing. You can contact me with the answer to this. Biden shouted, and that's the right term for it, during his speech, he challenged anyone to name one thing the U.S. set out to accomplish and failed. He said, our friends on the other side of the aisle, they're telling us America is failing. I don't know if failing is the right term, but listen, the media is doing the best they can to tell us never mind about inflation, never mind about the horrible economy right now. Yeah, you may think you're experiencing it, but believe what we'll get to in a moment. Believe what Chuck Schumer says. Believe what Biden says. Never mind that you go to the grocery store and what used to be, $50 is now costing you $200. That it's hard to even make it paycheck to paycheck. But I'll continue. Let me tell you, they're dead wrong, he said. America isn't failing. America is winning. And I've said 1,000 times, there's no quit in America. Okay? That's when his tone grew to anger. Name me a single objective we've set out to accomplish that we failed on. Name me one in all of our history. Not one. It's never been a good bet against America. It's still not a good bet. Now, I would agree it's not a good bet if you're betting against America. I totally agree. But you're getting a little cocky when you say, name us one thing that we set out to accomplish and failed. But I go back to what I was saying about Chuck Schumer. He said that people will know the economy is strong because what they're telling us in the media and what they're telling us just in general, politicians on the left, that the economy is actually good, that we're really strong. So people will know the economy is strong in a year. They won't remember how bad things were 6 to 8 months ago. Doesn't that kind of contradict what you're saying? They won't remember how bad it is now. It's good now. But that is the mind of a politician, especially a senator, that don't worry about it. The dumb voters will forget about this in 6 to 8 months or next time they need to vote for us. So let's do whatever we can before the run up to the election. We got to take another short break. A few more things on this. Oh, one other thing. The White House press secretary said that people will start to see Bidenomics helping more than it already is. And that the polls, the polls showing that people don't like Bidenomics, they don't tell the whole story. They don't tell the whole entire story. So again, never mind how much it affects you when you go to the grocery store, you fill up your gas tank. Never mind if you're thinking, how am I gonna feed my family tomorrow? That's all nonsense. Believe the Chuck Schumers. Believe the Bidens, the White House press secretary. So weigh in on this and much more. Please, I love hearing your comments, but we do have to take a short break. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Thank you for joining us here on Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. So I don't honestly know the answer to this, and it's getting kind of intriguing. There has been article after article suggesting, will Michelle Obama maybe run? Will she replace Biden? And then they throw around other people like Gavin Newsom. But the fact that there's that much conversation, and I know the polls show that people in the Democrat Party don't want Biden to run for re-election, and they want somebody else. But they have this much conversation about it. And then you start to see a few pieces here and there criticizing the president, such as the New York Times having that expose, for lack of a better word, about how he would not recognize his 7th grandchild. That was critical of him, showing his lack of empathy, or really how fake this persona of empathy has always been. And now CNN, of all places, has an article that's a fact check, which I hate these things because they can be twisted. But in this instance, they went after the president. Biden tells 3 false personal anecdotes in economic speech. Again, not if it were a different president, I won't name names. If it was just a different president, it wouldn't be false personal anecdotes. It would be president lies about life story. That's just a few short years back, it would have been that. The first was he gave another rendition of the Amtrak story. And, originally these were all considered, these are just Biden things that he does, that he makes up things, or he fabricates stories, or exaggerates stories. But now some people are looking at it as maybe a health issue. I'm not really sure, but again, I'm just surprised, and I do have to take a break, but I'm just surprised that CNN is going after him on this. So Biden gives a story, and even to the point where he says at the end, true story, I swear to God. But it isn't a true story, says CNN. Biden's story is false in 2 ways. First, as CNN and others have pointed out before, he could not possibly have had this exchange with the person at Amtrak because Biden did not reach the 1 million miles flown mark. I don't want to get into all the wonkiness. You can find the article at CNN. But it is a false story. It is, again, if it were a different president, it would be called a lie. Biden has been telling this false story about his late friend for more than 2 years. Good. Biden's birth and his grandfather's death, another lie he's told in the past. Biden repeated a version of a family anecdote he told in April. He said Tuesday that his grandfather, who had worked as an oil company executive, died just days before he was born in the exact same hospital. And by the way, my grandpa Biden who died very young. He died in the hospital I was born in 6 days before I was there. Before I was born. Here's the facts. Biden's claim is false in 2 ways. Again, false. That falls on my ear so harsh because we see what they called every single thing the former president had to say as a lie, but this is just false or an exaggeration. Biden said his grandfather died in the same hospital I was born in, blah, blah, blah. His partner, or his paternal grandfather, who had worked in the oil industry, Joseph Harry Biden, died in a hospital in Baltimore, Maryland in September of 1941. The president was born more than a year later in November of 1942 at a different hospital as well in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Biden and a Pittsburgh bridge collapse is the other lie. A lot of you were with me when I was in Pittsburgh. And by the way, Pittsburgh is a city of bridges. More bridges in Pittsburgh than any other city in America. I watched that bridge collapse. I got there and saw it collapse with over 200 feet off the ground going over a valley, and it collapsed. It's not true that Biden got there and saw it collapse. The collapse occurred before 7 a.m. on January 28, 2022, more than 6 hours prior to Biden landing in the Pittsburgh area for a scheduled visit. So these are, but again, and there's more Biden and the national debt. You know what? I do want to bring that one up, but I'm running late. So we'll talk about that when we come back. Please contact me if you'd like to weigh in on fabrications from the president. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. 2 quick things, because I do have to take another short break. I've been rambling on a little bit this morning, so I apologize. First, I want to read a comment from a viewer. Remember when Joe Biden said he wouldn't run? Then he ultimately did. Good point. I'm thinking that's what Michelle Obama is doing. That would give the Obamas, potentially, a combined way over a decade of rule. Interesting. This is, and if you're just joining us, this has been a common theme in the media. Will Michelle Obama run? Biden not popular. People don't think he's healthy enough to serve again. Maybe Michelle could step in. But I mentioned that there was one other, well, we'll say fabrication, a false anecdote, or whatever the case may be, however they try to spin it in President Biden's speech. Biden claimed, quote, and unlike the last president, in my first 2 years in office, even with all we've done, I'm the first one to cut the federal debt by $1 trillion. Debt by $1.7 trillion, excuse me, he added to it 1.7. So CNN, again, raising red flags why they're criticizing him. Quote, this is false, as the White House implicitly acknowledged in the official transcript by striking through the word debt and replacing it with deficit. As CNN noted in February, when Biden made a near identical claim, Biden has not reduced the national debt, the accumulation of federal borrowing plus interest owed. In fact, the national debt has increased from about $27.8 trillion on Biden's first day, $27.8 trillion on Biden's first day, to about $32.7 trillion today. Now, CNN is being critical. I still don't know why. Mentally, I think we're all thinking about it. Is this the first shots fired to try to get him out of running for re-election? When, you know, you have the New York Times critical of him recently, you have this, is it sending a message? But they still can't completely go after him, because this is the next line. Though it is important to note that debt increases are not solely the fault of any current president. Thank you. Thank you. And the debt versus deficit mix-up is not the only issue with Biden's claim. As CNN has repeatedly noted, it is highly questionable how much credit Biden deserves for the $1.7 trillion decline in the deficit, since the decline happened overwhelmingly because of emergency pandemic spending from the end of President Trump's administration. In fact, independent analysis says Biden's own new laws and executive actions have significantly added to current and projected future deficits, not reduced those deficits. I don't know. What do you think? Why are those in the far left media little by little becoming more critical of the president? Love to hear from you. So let's take a short break. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, please stay with us. All right, folks, I've got to take another short break because we're just running long. I've went on some tangents this morning. So we are going to take a short break. But when we come back, we're going rapid fire. We're going to hit so much in the last 5 minutes, you're not even going to believe it. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Department of Justice, and it is dangerous. The drip feed of stories coming out of Washington is making Americans believe, and not without reason, that justice is no longer blind. Of course, you look at what's happening to the former president, Donald Trump, and you look at what happened with the sweetheart deal with Hunter Biden. And the law is no longer equally applied. What has happened over the last few weeks only serves to reinforce this damaging trend. So that is, according to Mike Rogers, one of the greatest threats of all. A good piece, too, actually, at the New York Post. Biden's Hawaii response follows a familiar pattern with him. This coming from Isaac Score at New York Post. Ignore, then deny, then claim he's done a great job. Isn't that very true? I thought that was a really catchy headline because we've seen it time and time again. Don't be surprised when, not if, he eschews taking responsibility for his callousness in favor of unearned self-congratulations. Very good point. Now, Trump plunges, according to a poll by the Associated Press, to 35% favorability rating. And that it says 53% back the indictments. Now, a Fox News poll says that 53% of people believe that the former president did something illegal. But also 55% believe the DOJ is motivated by partisan politics. Enough about polls. We had a few more. Trump's refusing to take the loyalty pledge. They're trying to figure out what to do about that if he's going to be on the debate. Now, some, and it's coming from CNN, so take it with a grain of salt, but some have suggested he's going to look for counter-programming. Apparently on a different network than Fox, go to maybe do a rally on a different network, something like that, which would be interesting. Joe Scarborough says that Trump is scared to death of Chris Christie. That's why he doesn't want to debate. He's scared to death of Chris Christie and will not have the guts to debate him. Man, they want Chris Christie so bad. I don't understand it. But do you think, and you can text me after the show, do you think Donald Trump is scared of Chris Christie? I'm not even going to weigh in on it. I want to be seen as impartial, but I'd love to hear from you. Well, that's it. There was a couple pieces about what... It's always interesting when a far left outlet says, this is what these Republicans need to do to win the first debate. They don't want to see a Republican win ever. But Tim Scott's likability is fueling his rise. They ask how far can he climb, but Tim Scott's doing kind of good. And if you get a chance, Why College Has Become a Total Ripoff. That is an article by John Stossel at the New York Post. Thank you to Tim Copine for being our guest. Appreciate him telling us all about Elmira Impact and their need for host families. You can find out more or contact him at elmiraimpact.com and email him at tim@elmiraimpact.com. And I think we'll all watch the games and see how the team does this year. I'm glad that we learned more about Elmira Impact, formerly Junior Enforcers. And I want to highlight that tomorrow Stephen Shaw will be our guest, and he's going to tell us about NASCAR bourbon. And one other quick reminder, and I'm just running completely late, but tomorrow from 2 to 4, I will be at the Steuben County Fair. I'll be at the Republican booth. Stop by, say hi. We'll have a nice conversation. So that is tomorrow from 2 to 4 at the Steuben County Fair. Have a great day, everyone, and we'll be back tomorrow morning starting at 7 a.m. with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. I look forward to it already.